So we'll talk today a little bit about the Soyer HaMishtalech, which is a very unique aspect of kodshim, and especially when we're studying Yom Kippurim. And let's begin with the fact that there are two Seirim on Yom Kippurim, and lechatchila mitzvasam shiu shavim b'mara ubekoma ubedmehem v'lekichasam ke'echad. So it means the following, that these two Seirim, these two goats, have to be identical in the way they look, in their height, and in their value on the market. And he quotes a Rashash who says that damim here means what's called shvach d'mehem. So shvach d'mehem, I guess, would mean, let's say you work with the soyer and it produces labor or something of that sort. I don't know. He says shvach d'mehem. Now he says l'kichasam ke'echad. So they purchased both siorim from the same seller. And now we do what's called a hagrola. This is the famous lottery of the Shnei Seirim. Which one will go Lashem and which one will go Lazaz? The Gorel was done in the following way. They set up the Seirim, one on the right side of the Kohen Gadol, the other on the left side of the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol goes into what's called a kalfi, which contained two notes. On one note it said Lazazel, and the other it said Lashem. Now, he puts his two hands into the kalfi, and he picks up these two gorolos. These gorolos are chatichos shel zav. They are made of gold, and they are inside this kalfi. On one of them it says Lashem, on the other Lazazim. He picks up one with his right hand, one chatich of zav, one gorol, and another with his left hand. He puts the one that came up in his right hand on the sire on his right side, and the one that came up on his left hand on top of the sire on the left side. And this represents the shita of Rab Chanina Skan Kohanim in the Mishnah later on Daf Lamed Tes. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees, and he says that the Kohen Gadol and the Skan Kohen Gadol would both put their right hand, each one respectively, into the kalfi, so that every one of the two gorolos would be picked up by the right hand. The Kohen Gadol only has one right hand. How can he pick up the other gorol in his right hand? That would not be a gorol. So he needs to introduce and invite the Skan Kohen Gadol with his right hand. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Kohen Gadol would take that which he picked up with his right hand, put it on his right side, on the right side, and the Skan on the left side. La'alocha, we paskin that the Kohen Gadol himself puts in both of his hands, his right hand and his left hand. But here we have a comment of the Sfas Emes. The Sfas Emes writes that if you would hold, like Rabbi Yehuda, that the hanacha of the two gorolos are both with right hands, is li'achar shehela gorol bismol, ma'aviro liyad yamino, V'nosein al soyer shebismola. So he wants to transfer the gorol from the right hand to the left hand in order to place that gorol on the head of the sawyer that's on the left side of the Kohen Gadol. So in other words, there's going to be a hanacha biyamin and a hanacha b'smol. Okay, it goes beyond that, but that's what we'll do for now. Then he says the following. Li'achar shehela es hagorolos, meiniach hakohen gadol es zeh sha'ol b'yad yamino al sar shemino, et zeh sheb'smolo meiniach al sar sheb'smolo, u'kshenosein es hagorol al hasoyer sha'ol al Hashem b'yamino, hoya omer, he would declare l'Hashem chatos. And at that point, he invoked what's called Shem HaMeforosh, which the English translation says the ineffable name of God. And that generates a chiv hishtachava for anyone who hears the Shem HaMeforosh. And this is the opinion of the first Tana in the Mishnah in Masechta Yoma that we quoted earlier. And Rabbi Yishmael disagrees. And he says, just recite the word Lashem. Don't add the word Chatos. The Tanakama holds that the Kohen Gadol would add the word Chatos. Upirshu Rishonim Shebamiras Lashem Harehu Misayim Es Asiyas Hagoro. In other words, according to these Rishonim, the Ritva and others, we need a Hagrola, Mitoch HaKalfi, but all we need is for the Kohen Gadol to declare Lashem, or Lashem Chatos, according to Tanakama. He doesn't have to make any declaration about the soil Lazozah. The Hagrola itself will generate that status of soil Azazah. So by process of elimination, once the Kohen Gadol declares on the right side, Lashem, then that soyer is Ola LaKarban Lashem, and Memela, the other Karban, will be Lazazah. Later on, we're gonna have another shita. Now, this halacha that the Kohen Gadol has to make a verbal pronouncement is derived from a pasuk in the parsha of Avodas Yom Kippurim, Vayikra Tezayin, V'asol chatos, and Chazal say asol b'diburo. He has to make a verbal declaration that this is designated as a chatos. And now we get to the most important machlokes Tanoim between Rab Shimon and Rab Yehuda. Rab Shimon on Daf Mem says Ein Hagrola Ma'keves, whereas Rabbi Yehuda says Hagrola Ma'keves. What does it mean? If you hold like Rabbi Yehuda, then Ein Haseirim Nikbaim Ela Ba'Hagrola. It's not enough for the Kohen Gadol to say this is Lashem. He can only do so, according to Rabbi Yehuda, if and when he picks up that gorol that says Lashem after doing the gorol b'kalfi, and then he can declare it. But on his own, without a framework of Hagrola, his declaration of Lashem, says Rabbi Yehuda, is totally meaningless. The ein haseirim nikboim ella behagrola. The other man, that's Rabbi Shimon, ein hagrola makeves, and even in the absence of hagrola, kriyas Hashem aleim kov asam zel Hashem zel azazah. He is lacking in the mitzvah of hagrola, but hagrola is only a mitzvah. And he can generate the kedusha of Lashem Chatas by simply declaring this Sa'ir is Lashem Chatas. What everybody agrees is that Ein Hanocha LaSeirim Makeves V'im Lo Iniechas HaGorol Saleim Chiser Mitzvahs Hanocha Shenemar V'nasan Aaron Eshnei HaSeirim Gorolos. The Sina is Hanocha. But Kavan Sha'olu HaGorolos Min HaKalfi is then Kvar Nikba Kol Echad B'Shmo HaOmed B'Yamin Gorol Sha'ola B'Yad Yamin HaOmed B'Smol Kigorol Sha'ola B'Yad Smol. He picks up these two Gorolos, the Kohen Gadol. He's got one in his right hand and one in his left hand. We don't know for sure which one says Lashem, which one says Lazazel on it. But whichever way it is, that itself is Kovea, the two Seirim, even without Hanoch. So Hanoch is a mitzvah. So we're saying the following, that we have one man, the Omer Reb Shimon, who holds you don't even need Agrola, and a Kriya Shem would be enough. And now we're saying that even if I hold Hagrola Makeves, like Rabbi Yehuda, and the Kriya Shem of the Kohen Gadol, when he decides that this one is designated Lashem, is meaningless. But Rabbi Yehuda would agree that although Hagrola is absolutely critical, Hanocha is not. And once the Kohen Gadol lifts up one gorol in his right hand and another in his left hand, that's Kovea, the two Seirim. The one gorol that he picks up in his right hand will be Kovea, the sawyer that's on his right. The gorol that he picks up in his left hand will be Kovea, the sawyer on his left. And whatever's in the gorol, that will already generate the status of Lashem or Lazaz. There is no absolute critical need for Hanoch. According to Rabbi Shimon, even Hagrola is a mitzvah. And it's not Makeves. According to Rabbi Yehuda, Hagrola is Makeves. It's Kovea the Kedusha. This Lashem and this Lazaz. But Hanoch, according to everyone, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, is only a mitzvah. And now, at this point, he quotes a Migdash David. You remember that many times I've mentioned to you the Migdash David. He's like one of the champions in kodshim. And he says that if I hold Hagrola Eino Makeves like Rabbi Shimon, then Ein Bekocho Shel Hagoro Likvoa Shem Al Seirim Af Mishehigril Aleim. Unbelievable. The Migdash David is saying that according to the Mandiyama who holds Ein Hagrola Makeves, even if he went and he did the Hagrola itself will not generate the Kedusha and make that determination of Lashem and Lachatos. Ulafichach afliachar Hagrola Yochol HaKohen Likvoa Shem Af Bisar Sha'ozer Ola Lazozer V'chein Lehev. So imagine how far we're going now with Reb Shimon. Hagrola is a mitzvah, but it's not Makeves. Not only does that mean that the Kohen Gadol could completely circumvent the Hagrola, and with his own determination and Kriya Shem, he can generate the Kedusha, the Carmel, Hashem, and smoke. But it means even more than that. If the Kohen Gadol went ahead and implemented a Hagrola, he can twitch it around. Despite the fact that, for example, it said Lazazel on the gorol that he picked up with his right hand, he can determine that the right sire will be Lashem, despite the fact that the Gorel says Lazozo. Is Lashita Zu mitzvahs hagrola hainu sheyasas aseirim kimosha olu begoro. What does it mean, mitzvahs hagrola? After all, it's not ma'akev. Not only that, the Kohen Gadol can determine on his own which one is it, and the Kohen Gadol can switch it around against the hagrola, do just the opposite. Hagrola mitzvah means that the Kohen Gadol, if he's a good guy, he's a good, upstanding citizen, what he should do is implement the Gorel, but he's the Balabas. Ultimately, the Kedusha of these two Seirim is dependent totally, exclusively on the Kohen Gadol. The mitzvah that the Torah would like to see fulfilled, this is the way the Torah recommends it, is that he should follow that Gorel. But that's not what generates the Kedusha. He will generate the Kedusha. The Kohen Gadol would determine this one's Hashem and this one's Azazel, but he should take his cue from the Gorel. That's mitzvah sagrol. Now, Soyer Azazel is not a korban in the classic sense that's brought bifnim inside the Mikdash. With regard to a zevach that's brought on the Mizbeach, we have a psul called Balmum. The soil Lazazel is sent Lazazel. Push him over the precipice. Do we care whether he's a tam or a Balmum? Hamum Hosel B'Soyer Hamishtalech. The avoda bachutz of the Soyer Mishalech is upgraded. It is defined as an identical status as avoda b'fnim. V'adover beinenu l'kipela. This is the marvel of the Soyer Mishalech story, that the dinim that apply b'fnim in the Mikdash apply now bachutz with regard to the Soyer Mishalech, and a mum is posel the Soyer. Pretty way out. Now, what happens if the mum was a result, we'll call it time T2, of something that occurred after the Hagro? I understand that, again, I never would have said it on my own, but I'm just saying I could understand the mechanics of a Balmum in Soyer Mishalech being possible before the Hagro. But once the Hagro was Chal, and now the Soyer has been determined as a Soyer Mishalech, he says, Af im humam li achar Hagrola. The Hagrola itself is not the end of the story. The avoda is to take the Soyer and push it off Lazazel. How does he know such a thing? He says the following, that the Hagrola itself is predicated on the assumption that we have two candidates, each one of which could be the Soyer Hashem. Otherwise, Hagrola is meaningless. So that means that if one of these two Seirim was a Balmum before the Hagrola, then the whole enterprise of Hagrola is completely meaningless, because there's one Soyer here of the two and is not a candidate for Hashem. They both have to be candidates for Hashem. Is Memela, when the Gemara establishes that the psul of Balmum applies to a Soyer Mishalech, it must be talking about a case where the Soyer became a Balmum after the Hagrola. If it was already a Balmum before the Hagrola, then the Hagrola doesn't get off the ground, because it's not Roy Lashem. Now we have another category. Mechusar Zman. Does the psul of Mechusar Zman apply to the Soyer HaMishtalech? What is Mechusar Zman? Number one, Mechusar Zman would mean that the Soyer is less than 8 days old. The earliest time to bring a carbon on the Mizbeach is when it reaches its 8-day birthday. I'm not referring to the musical group called the 8th Day, but it's helpful. Anyway, so the 8th day, he says the following. The ofen zeh lo yitzuyar be'avar rishona shel shnei ha'seirim shalo lalocha hagrola ma'keves u'b'shas hagrola tzrichu yu shnei seirim l'soil Hashem im kain soil zeh kvar b'shas hagrola yakodem shvonos yomim leida eino posel mishum psul soil mishtalech al mitamach sheinu roil Hashem. So this possibility, once again, is knocked off the billboards. It cannot be that this Sawyer is less than 8 days old, because if this Sawyer is less than 8 days old, the psul is not a psul of Mechusar Zman, but again, since we paskin hagrola ma'keves, the hagrola is meaningless because the animal is not royal Hashem. Ella, but rather Yitzur Psul Zeh, when is it Mechusar Zman? Be ofen she'viu shnei seirim kedin, humam hasoyer ha'mishtalech lach hagrola, chilulua al ha'mechusar Zman. Sha'afim hagrola ma'keves mikomakom im humam li echad min ha'seirim, mechalen also al soyer acher, Hasheni nitfas b'kedushasa shel harishon, v'lo hagrola. He says the following: that hagrola is not required in a case of a replacement. Meaning that if you did the hagrola was implemented, and now you replace one of the two seirim, you don't need hagrola a second time around. You can simply designate another sa'ir to replace the first one without hagrola. You've already fulfilled the hagrola that was necessary. Now you have an empty space. You have a vacant chair. This sa'ir, after being determined, let's say Lazazel, is gone with the wind. Now you find a replacement sa'ir. That replacement sar sits in the same seat as the sar lazazel. It doesn't need a new agrola. We don't start the agrola all over again. Now he takes a second sire to replace the first one, and lo and behold, it's Mechusar Zman. It's less than 8 days old. Possible. Not beside the agrola, because there's no requirement of agrola in the second replacement sire, but because of the psul of Mechusar Zman. So it's really fascinating. What happened to the first sire? Such that now, after the agrola, we have to replace it with the second sire that doesn't need agrola. The first sire became a balas mum, after the hagrola. So the hagrola was meaningful. We have to replace the sawyer now because it became a balmum, and we said the balmum passes the sawyer mishtaleach. And now we replaced it with a sawyer that was Mechusar Zman, and there's no psul of hagrola. We've already accomplished hagrola. The second sawyer is just sitting in the vacant spot of the first. But now he has another possibility based on a sugi in Yoma on Daf Samach Daf. We have an Isser in the Torah called Oso v'es Beno. We're not allowed to shecht a mother and its offspring on the same day. We have now a sire that was dedicated Lazazel, and its mother was shechted that very morning. I'm not sure how that happened because it's Yom Kippur. But whatever it is, maybe it was part of the Avodas Yom Kippur. Now, there's no way that you're allowed to shecht this sire because the mother was shechted on this very day. Im nishchata imo bi oso ayom vi osur b'shchita mitama oso v'espinolo sishcha b'yom echad pasuk vayikra chav beis is psul zeh yitzur b'ofen sheviu shnei seirim kidin achar agrola shachtu es imo shalom mishtaleach litzorach machal chole. Oh, he says, why did they shecht the mother of this sire? Again, you did that grola. The sire has been determined, and then you went ahead and you shechted the mother of this hazar, the mother goat. Why would you do such a thing? You have a chola, and he desperately needs to eat, and there's no other meat available. We have to shecht bishum pikuach nefesh. Is in this case nifsal mishtaleh. The psul, the sara mishtaleh becomes pasul because it's mechusas man, meaning we're not allowed to shecht it today. Upsul zeh miyusad al halacha shedchia litzuk shal mishtaleh zoi shchitas. That the avoda that's done in the sara mishtaleh bachutz, which means that we push it off the precipice, is a replacement for the avoda b'fnim of the soil Hashem. Ulefichach nesar b'shiluach the im nishchata imo bios, right? Im nishchata imo bioso ayo. Okay, then. So this is where we're going to stop for today in our introduction to kodshim.